It's a slightly challenging topic for two reasons. A, everybody and his grandmother has an opinion on this topic right now, and you probably heard tons of stuff. B, we're supposed to talk about what's next in generative AI. I doubt anyone knows what's here in generative AI right now. It's happening so fast. And it's the one problem. The other problem is there's a widely different opinions depending on the time frame where we're going. But we're trying to keep it up. I mean, I will also open, you can also get prepared. I will open up the discussion for the forum because I think it's such a great panel to have it. But first, I would like to give the panel a little bit more of an opportunity to introduce themselves. And I start with the first question. So Jonas, I started immediately with a question. When GPT-3 was published about 3 years ago, most people like myself and so actually realized for the first time, oops, these generative models based on transformers might actually be a way to even general AI. And then tons of people got into the field and so on. Now, you actually got into this earlier, right? I mean, you started Aleph Alpha in 2019, now the leading Gen AI company in Europe. Perhaps you can give a sense of who you are and what drove you to found Aleph Alpha.
Yeah, sure. So I am, my academic education is from Karlsruhe, from KIT. And I was always an entrepreneur, so I started 3 companies, and you would now call them all AI companies. Granted, that doesn't narrow it down too much, which everything is called an AI company nowadays. But through my second company, I got into Apple, and I was in Cupertino in Apple's AI R&D special projects group. This is the kind of James Bond Q division. I can only tell you what I did after I kill you or before I kill you, a kind of thing. And during that time, I was privileged to be around brilliant researchers and be given kind of some time and actually the mission from basically Tim to do some AI R&D, and that gave me the opportunity to see early some of the things that by now we basically all know. Of course, I'm still surprised, right? It's not like I knew it all in advance, precisely the way it came to be. But this led to the fact that we started building GPT-style language models even before GPT-3 was out. One of the first things we did as Aleph Alpha was build a language model based on the published speeches by Angela Merkel. So we kind of build a Merkel-like speaking AI bot that could give you like a chancellor speech for all kinds of subjects. So that's kind of, I think, roughly my background.
Very cool. Thank you very much. So I go in the order here, and continue with Andreas. Andreas, you are here as the CTO of Microsoft Germany. Even if you just deserted, you can give us perhaps a sense of that as well. But as Microsoft, you kind of suddenly sit in the eye of the hurricane, right? I mean, you CEO, transformed the company completely, made incredible what people thought were bets, but look more like thought through strategic decisions, right now and so on. Can you give us a little bit of sense, who you are, how you get into things, and what does then a day of a CTO at Microsoft look like these days?
Okay. So I'm a computer scientist by training, so I stumbled into AI some 15 years ago because I wanted to make my program make smart. And obviously at the time we called it machine learning, but I think it's always the same thing in a certain way. And what I did usually in my career is try to apply technology to business problems, and this is what Microsoft also does, or other companies do, like BCG, who I joined just 2 weeks back. So we try to make business sense out of technology, and especially AI these days. And obviously, in the last, 20 or even 30 years, we were always surfing on some technology hype wave, and that sometimes was called big data, or it was called machine learning or data science or what have you. What we have now with generative AI, I can say we never had before. And you were speaking about Microsoft, so that was really the perfect storm, because nobody and no insider expected that, because ChatGPT technology-wise was a step backwards at a time where we already were using GPT-4 internally. And everyone was super surprised that this really goes through the roof. Sam Altman told us he is just looking for 5,000 to 10,000 users to give feedback on the latest prompting that he wanted to use for responsible AI. And this was an experiment and a step into the GPT-4 direction, if you will. So in a nutshell, nobody at Microsoft was prepared. There was no communications, no marketing. We were just told the first days, don't speak about it, it might go wrong. And it went quite well, so there weren't really the big scandals everyone was expecting. And then you were speaking about the perfect storm that actually happened. So within a few months, I briefed more than 200 German-speaking board-level executives. Like everyone really wanted to understand why this is now changing the world, including some very, very interesting and maybe sometimes stupid comments. You get comments like, if we combine generative AI now, everyone, by the way, at the time thought it is replacing AI and machine learning and everything we had before. But the best comment I got is, we should combine it with blockchain and quantum computing, then we rule the world and everything's totally different.
Very cool. Thank you very much, Andreas. Now, Noreen, you actually had the privilege of, or the advantage of already introducing your company a little bit, but you said very little about yourself. So how did you actually get into this, right? I mean, what made you, first of all, get into the field? And, the Max Planck is not exactly known as a hotbed of new startups, in particular in this field. And you're now the poster child of Cyber Valley, I guess, right? So what made you make the jump?
Why, thank you so much. Well, okay, yeah. I also kind of stumbled into machine learning because I was really interested in, like I said, 3D graphics and computer vision. And I came to Max Planck sort of for those two spaces, to work on those two problems, and then sort of stumbled into what the people at Max Planck, the groups here in Stuttgart and Tübingen area were doing. And it was amazing. And the potential, it just made perfect sense that, okay, if you just use machine learning to train computers to understand things in certain ways, there's so much more they can do. And you can basically, it's like helping a child learn. We've been trying to do this with computers for a long time. So at this time, yes, with ChatGPT and all of those innovations, it's also really interesting to see how much they can learn. It's kind of really amazing. But yeah, so my startings were in the space of computer vision and computer graphics. From that, going into machine learning processes, I worked at Max Planck for almost 7-ish years, and then we realized, okay, this technology that we've built, not only is it amazing for academia, it can have so many more implications in the industry, because a lot of the folks from the industry had started coming to us, so we just started the company, and the rest was history.
Very cool. I think you're off the scale on all dimensions. Out of the woman, out of the Max Planck, coming to women inside the company, and in Cyber Valley, it's fantastic, right? Tim, so you're at the Fraunhofer IIS. Obviously, Fraunhofer focusing much more on industrial applications of AI, with smaller data sets. Perhaps you can give us a brief sense on who you are and what you do at the core.
Thank you very much. Yeah, actually, I'm a physicist by training, and I also stumbled into this whole topic because there was big data and data science, and I was thinking, well, this is what we are doing. I was wrong. Yeah, I learned a lot in the years after, and then we were doing a lot of machine learning, big data things in industry, industrial AI, a lot of like natural language kind of things where we were trying to understand contracts and all that. And only recently I got the new role as Managing Director of Enterprise Information Systems, where beside a lot of other things, we are working a lot with large language models. And let me just mention one thing which I like very much, and this is we are trying to enable, with this big data hype in data science, we are always speaking about this kind of citizen data science, that we can make this data-driven decisions throughout the entire business. And if we look into companies like nowadays, then we see this is actually not really gonna happen because people don't have access or need consultants in order to get the data out of databases or access it. And what we are trying to do is to use this large language and foundational technologies to enable like data-driven decision making on each level by simply developing assistance systems which do data science for you. So, in a nutshell, this is what we are doing in our department.
Very cool. I perhaps take the belated opportunity to introduce myself. You know, my name is Philip Gerbert. I actually had the TUM Venture Labs. We are, you know, very closely related to the Technical University in Munich and do, you know, promote startups. Have about 350 ventures across all technology fields. So you see people with these funny T-shirts running around. These are the TUM Venture Lab people. I've actually been in AI, watching AI for a long time. I was too much of a coward to get into it. I gave my first talk on AI in 1980. I was a chess player at the time, so that's what my interest at that point. And I always watched it at my tea times, you know, Minsky, and so I always thought, you know, well, it's so fascinating, but unfortunately the results are lousy, right? So I said, okay, I didn't think, you know, I should get into that. But then after 2012, obviously, Every came out and led then the AI for a long time at the Boston Consulting Group, where we first met actually, and built it up into what, you know, now is obviously the biggest wave. Now, I'll start with you, Tim. Now, we want to say, you know, what's next in generative AI, but let's perhaps a little bit, I think, what I would find interesting, so everybody is coming to you and asking about this stuff. So I would like to know, you know, what are actually the most common requests you're receiving these days? And then two things which are a bit, are they actually the right ones, in your view? I mean, are people focusing on the right things? And, sorry if you can, can you deliver, or to what extent can you actually deliver? You know, these people want to know it. You know, from this, but there are tons of things happening right now. What can you actually do?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, good question. Actually, people coming like from all industries, from like every role, and I think in the core they are asking, what the hell can we do with it? Yeah, they want to understand what does it mean for my business. Most of the questions are not, they don't want to understand the technology behind it or how can they like operationalize it. The first question is, what does it mean for my business? How is it changing, you know? And then the next step is really, okay, now looking at our processes, where can we apply it? And like it's most of the time at the moment very high level, and then like this is for the mainstream of the questions, and then there we have some outstanding companies which already like work quite a lot with AI, and for them it's not completely surprising what's now happening. They are at the moment like asking, okay, what is like we have to make technology decisions. You know, we want to deploy it into our products, and the question is, which model? Yeah. Which service? How can we like somehow safe and sure that the application is really doing what we want it to do, and that it's, let's say, if we are BMW doesn't promote cars from Volkswagen or something like this. So the question is really about operationalizing the things and evaluating the technology with their concerns, with their use cases a lot, and then some of them to whom we have a lot of contact is really, can we now solve the things we were talking about a year ago?
That's very cool. You did ask the second part. You know, even the most stupid person can think of very smart questions. These are good questions. What do you actually tell them?
Sorry, can you ask?
So say, okay, what model should we use? What is coming next year, and so on and so forth. So what do you do? I mean, you know, you say, okay, I know the answer. This is, I think, we'll ask you later.
Yeah, I mean, the question is what we are doing in a year is also, I mean, you ask, can we deliver? Yeah, and for us it's also a lot. I mean, really challenging. I mean, we were discussing it. You know, the field is so ultra fast. I mean, even as a research society, we somehow have to do some more long-term, mid-term projects, and for us also it's a lot puzzling. You know, on which technology, on which field should we focus on, and this is what we trying to explain to people, that it's pretty hard to say, I mean, make like very concrete decision now because field is so fast moving. I mean, beside the obvious things that you should definitely have a look on it and like revise your processes where it will make big changes, which are obvious now.
Summarize it provocatively. Don't act now. Just prepare to act. It's okay. You can answer later. So I'm a bit provocative. Now I'll go to you. I mean, Jonas, you actually have a model. It's great. So you can do things. Where do you see the biggest short-term opportunities, right? And are customers actually prepared to engage already on that? Because of this uncertainty and so on. So perhaps you can describe what do you see happening right now, and what are some things that you are doing?
Yeah, we got several models up to kind of twice the size of GPT-3, and so we're in production with several customers. Our focus is not on doing your kids or your own homework. So we don't really care about B2C use cases, and this is basically where the challenges start, because big organizations and governments are slow. When you look at statistics, Germany has always been kind of like on the last places on innovation and AI adoption. So we're in a way seeing this again. I think it's a testament to maybe a new generation of government that we do have in Baden-Württemberg, in the land. We now have several hundreds users every day using our technology for administration, for government interactions, actually in pretty complex processes. I'm always trying to make clear that this is not just about chatbots and copywriting. Like on what we're doing in like government in the land is basically working with multi-page, super complex Word documents that follow specific formats, are based on internal knowledge, so quite complex. But generally speaking, there's often a gap between the cool examples that you've seen on Twitter, on like what ChatGPT can do, and if you actually try to put it into production in your own industry or for your own problem. And when you work with this technology for questions that you yourself are an expert of, then you quickly realize that there's actually a lot of things that are not perfect yet, and you would probably want to have them slightly different. So I think this is a journey that now has begun, and I think it's important for pretty much everybody, government, industry, but also civil society, to not only think about how can we react to the technology that's here today, but also how can we start reacting to the technology that will be here in 2 years.
Cool. So, Noreen, perhaps going to you. You are kind of, if I may say, the shovel maker in the gold rush, right? I mean, you provide the avatars that the AIs desperately need to use, right? So, can you say how you actually interact, or your company interact with the general AI people?
With the general AI people?
With the generative AI people.
Oh, with the generative. Oh, well. So back in 2015 is when we actually first published the paper that introduced the simple model. And at that time, at a conference in Chile, we actually gave a tutorial about how amazing the possibilities of a generative model will be. And we thought, okay, so we'll talk about this model, and then the last slide, we were very excited. We made a whole slide about how generative models will change the world. Nobody really got it at that time. But right now, so this really has been building up. And the possibilities have existed. The work has been being done over all of these years. And there's so much possible. So like I was saying in my talk as well, so what we're building is this foundation where it can interact with every other system. And the generative AI in general. So this is a generative model that we've built, and it can enable AI sort of other sort of like text-based generation of 3D humans doing different actions and in different environments. So this is getting there already. The most important thing here is about making sure that it is handled correctly and it is used correctly, like building the infrastructure to make sure that the usage is handled properly. And that's why having this a company based in Germany that is, building around these regulations in EU, it's great. But on the AI front, what we're getting, a lot of interaction from the AI space is just, lots of questions of what's next, what else is possible. So the journey will never be over. Even though what's possible today were the questions we were getting 5 years ago. Can I just generate a human from a photo? So today that's possible. Now the next question becomes, can I generate exactly my hair with just a photo, or my clothes with just a photo? And that's going to be solved pretty soon as well. And then there will be, the exploration will never stop, and that's the most important thing. Cool. I don't know if I really answered your question.
We'll get into more details in a second. Andreas, you just heard the Google talk. I hope you were impressed. Perhaps you can comment a little bit, where do you see the biggest benefits and applications that you see in your space right now, and how is Microsoft approaching that in terms of enabling customers and users?
Well, Microsoft is largely providing the stack and technology. I think they're not providing the business solution. Where I see the biggest impact, so generative AI has 4 dimensions in business application. It has a user experience thing that can be user, can be an employee, or can be a customer. So with text understanding or chat or speech, that improves and changes the user experience. That's like the most low-hanging fruit. The next thing is bottom line improvements. That is also very simple. You take out cost and improve speed, and we do this all the time already. And what we see actually with the technology, with generative AI in comparison to machine learning or AI as we had it before, that it really, we can implement it very fast. And it doesn't really predict just one thing, like this trade is fraudulent or this is money laundering. You can really connect the dots between such siloed process steps. And then obviously everyone is looking into bigger business and growth, and that is a third application of the technology, like new customer segments, new regions. Because, for example, it's bridging languages. You can ask in German, English data set, and give the answer in Italian. These things open up a lot of opportunities. What everyone is talking about is what we call moonshots, or other call golden use cases or killer apps, something that completely disrupts industries. And that was usually like the golden thing. Google searched for that for a couple of years, I guess, with advertisement. We think we found 3 since ChatGPT is out. And not based on ChatGPT, but GPT. But we think we found 3 use cases that are worth 2-digit billion. And the CEOs of the companies involved think so too. So it is really a game changer. And I think the business application, to your point, is really tangible already if you use the right tech.
Would you share the 3? Now that you set it up, would you share the 3 use cases?
Well, obviously, when you have moonshots that are worth billions, you can already download the source code. That's how we handle these things. I can give you an idea how it works. So all 3 work in one dimension. So first of all, they connect complex process steps in established industries. So think of an industry like usually something old, something slow, where the process is very expensive and large billions move through that. That's one criteria. The other criteria is lots of people involved, and it's very expensive and slow. And the third criteria is there's historical data that's proprietary and that makes a difference. And somebody owns that, and everyone else doesn't have that. And in machine learning, you would have to have that data to train the model. Now, with generative AI, we don't train a model usually anymore. We just generate something from one sample. So the foundational model, and we will later speak about big mistakes, foundation model is like your school education knowledge, and you look up in some other data and you generate something. So you attack the proprietary data estate, and this is how it works.
Okay. We'll dig deeper.
Good enough.
Now, you will see, the audience will tell you if they're satisfied with the answer. I want to get a little bit into what people are doing that is really great, and what mistakes they're making. And because it's a sophisticated audience, I'll challenge you a little bit. And I had 2 questions, and you can take the answer here. What is the most intelligent mistake that even sophisticated people make that you've observed? And the other way around also, what's the most surprising productive use of Gen AI today that many experts didn't expect, or you at least didn't expect before then? So who is ready to take one of those questions? You already said you would, okay?
I can. So Noreen said it already, I rephrase it. So I think one example is they think it's too simple, especially business customers we have. They think there's like this iceberg type of thing. They see ChatGPT and they think that can do everything. And then what you said, they forget like one space more and the prompt changes the output sometimes on these things. At least with your competitor, we see these things a lot, or they update the software and then it's different. So model management and model ops, machine learning ops is a whole new dimension with these many parameters you have in generative AI. So putting it to simple and not thinking about organization and process and these type of things, and then using it like ChatGPT, the foundation model is the database. That's like the.
I'm not sure I understand your question. Is it to what question is in an answer? It's your most surprise. The mistake that most even sophisticated users make is they overestimate the model. Is that to get that right?
They use the model as a database and they underestimate the process you have to build around it to manage the parameters of the model and.
Okay. I would say that's a largely discussed mistake, at least already, right? So perhaps you can top that. Jonas, any ideas on your side?
Yeah, maybe to add to that. I think people are seeing the outcomes of these systems, and it's difficult to imagine a process that would create an intelligent-like outcome that would itself be meaningfully different from the process that humans have, like in our brains. When you look at the outcomes, they look very similar as if they were produced by humans. And of course, that's why we call it artificial intelligence, because it produces intelligent outputs. But the process creating these outputs is different, and it's different in a way that it's sometimes difficult to have an intuitive understanding of of the things they get wrong and the things they get right. And current, like OpenAI, Microsoft, but others I'm sure as well, what they're currently trying is to remedy the fundamental difficulties and shortcomings of these models by training the stochastic parrot better and better. So and this is not kind of solving the fundamental problem, but it's basically making the models more and more usable as if, in many cases, as if the fundamental problem wouldn't exist.
Okay, but I mean, there always was submarines don't swim, right? Machines solve models differently from humans, and this is very deceptive indeed. You think it's the same. Can I follow up just? You can ask the model to go step by step. Does that help?
Yes, this kind of helps. And I have a talk, and I think 2 hours roughly, where I go a little bit deeper into that. It is, from my perspective, it is a little bit of a hack to produce a loop-like mechanism with the autoregressive transformer. So it's kind of looping, although not really, but it's kind of looping because it's autoregressive and it can attend to the results of earlier quote-unquote thinking steps. And when you look at actual biological brains, what makes them very different from these networks is that they're very, in a way, chaotic. They have a lot of residuals, so very wild connections, everything to everything. And most of the times, the signal from beginning to end is pretty shallow, but there's a lot of control flow, like loops and conditional execution. And so you could say that a chain of thought prompting is a little bit like a hack to get an autoregressive transformer into a loop-like thinking structure.
Okay, so this was a little commercial break for his talk later. If you want to know more about how you can understand how a machine thinks, then go to his talk later. Noreen, you already raised your hand that you have a great example.
Oh, I don't know if it's great, but I was just for the first question, I was just going to say, falling for the hype is one of the biggest mistakes. A lot of people either are getting too excited about the possibilities and over expecting what the current solutions can do. There will be lots of progress, and right now there's lots that's not possible, and in the future there will be still more that will keep getting solved. However, getting too excited about it and then trying to have these higher expectations is going to be a pitfall. And the other side of this is also getting scared about what the possibilities of AI are, and then putting bans or starting to think that, oh, I should not work in this field anymore and stuff like that. That is counterproductive because the space is already out there. People will, well, not space. This space is already out there, and people will keep on working on it. And the more researchers and academics who have concerns, the more they also keep working on it, they will be able to find solutions of the things that they are concerned about. Because if AI can be used to create deep fakes, some troubling kinds of models, AI can also be trained to detect those problems or detect those kinds of uses. And that's essentially what we have to keep on focusing on. AI will not stop. This evolution of this next stage of where we're going will not stop. We just have to build towards it together.
Very cool. You're almost a step ahead of us, right? I mean, it's so even most sophisticated users can fall into the hype. Definitely most sophisticated, not only users, but producers, right? Fall into the second part to say, well, shouldn't we perhaps not do it anymore? But we'll get back to that later. Anything you have ever seen that you think, this is a really smart user, why does he make such a stupid mistake with AI? You don't have to say names.
I think the general thing is, and I think Jonas already said it, I mean, it's about, that people forget that how important the context is, because it's not like it can solve a lot of tasks, and you mentioned theory of charts, so we are working a lot in this field to make the context as good as possible in prompt engineering to get these models understand what we really want from them. And I think you also were asking what is surprising, and although one could expect that, but what I found really, really productive, increasing productivity is in the field of software development. If you know that there is a bug, yeah, you can find the bug, and this makes all of us who know about software development know that it's 80% finding bugs, and this is incredibly increasing our time in software development.
Yeah, I think so. That's the most surprising use you found in terms of. I agree. I was, how useful it was. It was adopted. Within a few weeks, right, by the entire coding community. If you code and don't use Copilot, I think you're making a mistake. Anyone else who thinks, there was something really surprising that suddenly happened? No, you weren't surprised by anything. You knew everything before, right? But anybody else? No surprises?
Well, at first I was surprised at Apple, and that's kind of led me to start this company. When the very early generation of these models did things that myself, but all the brilliant researchers around me, we all thought that would be impossible. And this continued. So we have the shifting of the goalposts in a way, right, where AI is doing more and more things. Back then, that was in 2018, this was in a way solving logical problems that have, like they are phrased, have never been in the training data. So they cannot be purely explained by memorization of the problem, but they have to be some sort of conceptual combination.
So how good they are as reasoning machines? Is it a fair paraphrasation or emerging properties and all of the above?
I think that's fair to say, at least in effect. There's clear indications, therefore, that they are, in how they do this, they're meaningfully different from humans. But the effect is certainly there. So the probability, or the multidimensional distribution that we're basically approximating in the stochastic parrot seems to be good enough to solve a lot of logical problems.
Yeah, I mean, back to your point, Frank, my biggest surprise was a friend of mine put the exam and the final exam of quantum information theory in front of a GPT-4 and solved it fine. It can read quantum code, it can write quantum code. I happen to be impressed by this. I'm a physicist, but okay. So, how do you learn that? Okay, anyways. Now, for the, going forward, there's always a balance a little bit between opportunity and risk, right? So on the risk side, there's obviously lots of things, in particular around safety, authenticity, and obviously where you go beyond that and so on. Perhaps let's start here with Noreen, right? You're producing lots of artificial images, right? And what do you think of the whole authenticity topic about, we saw that we are kind of facing with all these capabilities? You said, you take a little bit and you create a whole image. And we saw Google here. So how do you know what, I don't know how much you learn digitally, but how do you know who is who, what is what can be done?
Well, yeah, so when training these models, this is essentially what it is built to do. It can take a little bit of information about a person and recreate that person. Now, that was essentially one of the things that I was saying at the beginning, is why we intentionally wanted to base the company also in EU, because of the GDPR and the regulations, because we're dealing with personal data, or sort of, even if it's just body measurements of a person, and we can recreate that person in 3D, it has healthcare impact. It has, if that data is shared without a person's consent, it can be misused. So it's really, really important that there are regulations that are being built around this. And then making it all of the mechanism of how we build these models and what kind of data we're putting into it to train it, making that available for the public to also use. That's why we also made it. We started with the academia. We built it. Everything that we're building into our systems is publicly available for other people to try themselves, and especially for academics and the creative community to explore. That's the important part, because even if individual companies are not aware of it, because mistakes happen. When you're building, these kinds of systems, there might be some kind of security flaw that we are not familiar with, or we're not, thinking about. But having these open systems makes it, a much stronger system, just like the Linux system. There's so many people that are working on it, and it's all available that, vulnerabilities are easier for people to find out and fix them and find ways, or find out when, it's important to identify something and then notify everybody that, okay, there's this sort of a vulnerability, or this kind of a limitation, or this is where we need to set some boundaries. And that's the most important thing for us. Yeah.
Cool. Perhaps let's touch on the topic that's so often discussed, bias, fairness. We had this discussion right now, Jonas. Now, I put up a thesis, right? I said bias is solved to the point it's solvable. And my proposition is, if I want to know whether text is biased, I give it into GPT-4, and it has a very sophisticated discussion of bias, more than I can do. And the rest is in the eye of the beholder. So what do you think is coming there? Is this still, so obviously it's an issue because every beholder means it's different, but is there an intelligent discussion going on, and how do you think this will be developed, and is it still a real issue going forward?
It's very much a real issue, and it might even become a stronger issue going forward. And the reason for that is not that our AI is incredibly biased. I think we've got the least biased AI we've ever had, because we're just better at building systems, and we're better at making them representative, making the results and the training data representative of the whole world, and not just kind of a limited training data set. I come from a time where our training data sets were horribly small and horribly biased, and that led to all kinds of systems that absolutely unintentionally, but systems that kind of didn't really work that well. I think what's now happening is that we have systems that, in capability, reach the complexity of our world. And figuring out what is fair with the complexity of our world is incredibly difficult to do. One of my favorite examples is, if you ask our model, and I'm sure it'll be very similar for all kinds of models, who is overrepresented in German prisons? It'll tell you men, mostly young men, which is evidently true. I think it's like 98% of inmates are men. But how do we differentiate the structure of the world we live in with, let's say here, a sexist bias? Right? I think this is difficult to do, and we approach it slightly and with a different philosophy, in a sense that we're not trying to force our own ideological ideas of what is right and wrong onto our users, but we're focused on transparency and control. I think we got the most transparency in like all offers on where results actually come from. And then we entrust our partners and customers on figuring out how they want to use that model and don't try to basically solve the problem of ethics for them.
Thank you very much. We would have tons of questions, but I do want to open it up, right? So I have a few requests. I have a request to the audience. If you have a question, quickly say who we are to give a little bit of context to the question, focus on the question, say to whom it is, and whoever answers this, try to answer it briefly so we get the opportunity for more questions. So, any questions? Nobody.
No, there's one.
Oh, here you go. Here. Can you say who we are and get a mic and get a question? Is anybody? The other mics out there? Okay. Fine. You go next, don't worry.
Am I understandable?
Yes.
Yeah.
Shout. I repeat it if I understand it.
Oh, next try. Yes.
We can hear you.
My name is Lucas. I'm from a project development firm, and I admit we are kind of visitors from the outside here, just spectating. A little bit of background. 2 weeks ago, we got a meeting with the president of the TU Munich, and we developed a clear vision of building a KI campus with the TU together. And my question to you is, you're developing these nice things in the digital world, but in the real world, if you could dream up a location where you could build the next steps, what would be needed at this location? Thanks.
Okay. Who wants to take this question? Fraunhofer, perhaps? Yeah, you're the real world guys, no?
Let's give it a try. I think we can make it short. I mean, hardware. Yeah, we definitely need a lot of hardware, and this is like rare. I think maybe know what I mean. Data. Yeah, I think we see that there is a real issue with the data, which is used to train things. And to have clearance about where it's coming from, to have every right clarified about it. And the third, and I think most important thing is to have the talents. Because I think this is I mean, this technology is evolving a lot, and it's, I mean, pretty hard to catch up with all the developments and to get the right talents in place to, as Andreas said, operationalize it, as Jonas, develop these kinds of things, and then like have the ideas which really solve the customer problems. I mean, it's all so much depending on the talents you have. I think these are the most critical factors.
Very cool. If I'm at, because we have the TU, you know that we have a great robotics department. They work a lot on getting it in the real world. So I had seen another question exactly next, perhaps you get a mic there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for all the good insight. My name is Robert Ranitsky, and I work as a filmmaker and digital artist in 2D and 3D in motion graphics and image generation traditionally. So this question is probably more towards Noreen. Looking at 3D characters is the most difficult thing to do in feature films and everything. It's like the uncanny valley. If you look at eyes, for example. We realize, for example, for generative image creation with prompts, remember the problems we had with hands. You had 6, 7 fingers and all that stuff. Now that is solved for 2D images, obviously, and eyes were always pretty good. But for 3D generation, looking at the eyes, I think that's a whole new topic and level. Maybe you can talk a little bit about this, on how to avoid the uncanny valley, and is this like a different approach towards the eyes, towards the body, and so on? Is there something you can tell us about that?
Yes, just don't have eyes on the character.
Yeah, I know, it's easy, right?
It's a cheat.
It's a cheat code, yeah. But so yeah, motion and also the facial expressions, those really make a human. How we move is really tells us, okay, this is a real person, or if it's just a person that was created by an animator by hand. And that's really, really, it makes a huge difference. Even the smallest things like how we are shrugging. If it's done wrong, we are just very, as humans, when we observe that, we're very attuned to being able to see that and say, okay, there's something wrong with this person, or with this character. So yeah, just the overall motion, that's what we've been solving. Getting to the faces, that's also some of the technology that's been recently coming out of Max Planck also, and we're using a lot of these technologies ourselves. And eyes are the next biggest problem to solve. And there's been a lot of work that has that has been happening in computer vision and computer graphics, combining both of these together with the machine learning concepts that I've been talking about to solve this as well, because tracking the eyes, basically, the thing is, it's all about interaction. When a person is talking to somebody, there are certain kinds of eye movements that they do, and different people have different kinds of interaction. So I can go on about how to solve this problem, but it's a really interesting problem, and it's like solving for the full body is one side of the problem, and solving for the eyes is a whole other problem that has to be solved on its own, and it's possible. This is already being done.
But perhaps you can take it offline afterwards, because I think she has much more to say on eyes, but I fear we're going to run over time. Any other questions? And make yourself known, because, sorry, we are a bit blinded, so we see it. Can you get a mic there? Over there?
I already have the mic.
Oh, sorry, apologies. We are blinded here, so apologies if we don't see you.
Silke Hahn is my name. Okay, Silke Hahn is my name. I'm a former technology journalist from Heise, now Springer Nature Spektrum der Wissenschaft. I've got 2 questions for Andreas Braun. There's one that is haunting me since March. You were smiling, I think you know what I'm going to ask. Was it actually on purpose that you told the semi-public about the emerging GPT-4?
Were you the lady publishing that globally?
Yes, indeed, that's me.
So first time meet. So people say some people say AI is not killing jobs; it killed mine.
I just wondered. Now you are not Microsoft anymore. Did I kill your job? Did AI kill your job? What happened to you?
Yeah. So what happened is it was not on purpose. So I was in a room. There were like 50 people from my team, and I was speaking after Marianne about generative AI, and you saw it, and we all were using GPT-4 for months. And so everyone in the room knew that we had a publication the night before with the features, public press release, and I really thought that was public already. So I said, for those who don't know, I said, and by the way, next week, as we are going to release GPT-4 with those features, and that was, as you I think wrote quite casually, and I was not aware that there is a media stream, that there is press, and I was not aware that I will be named the CTO of Microsoft globally in Forbes magazine with a picture. And so the fun fact is, when I came home, I had 28,000 connect requests on LinkedIn, and I thought those idiots might have a bug. and I got a call from Satya's office, and so I got very famous very fast.
Okay, there was a second part of the question. Did I miss it? No. Okay. Anyways.
If you want to say, why did you leave Microsoft? Because you were so famous afterwards and had so many options, or? I'm just curious.
I just got this fantastic offer,
Me too.
Well, having been a senior partner of BCG in 15 years, you have to leave him that. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, it's also had such a cool AI group. Any other questions? Here. Yes, here you go. You have a mic?
I think it's the last question.
Yes, okay. I believe it is, yes.
Hi there, I'm Max from Stadtwerke München. I've got a question. First of all, thanks for this fantastic conference. But when do we get AI talk and conference summaries? And most of all, do we want that?
When will you have AI conference summaries?
Yeah, sure.
The future is here now. It's just not even distributed, right? I mean, no.
we got customers that,
tools already.
Yeah, we got customers that have something like that in production for their own internal kind of work and conferences or talks, meetings.
You have it in Teams already since a couple of months.
Yes, a cockpit and a co-pilot. I know, but do we want that? That's, I think, the interesting part.
Yes.
Okay, that's perhaps a question for later. We'll have AI ethics and lots of things. I mean, I think so. I mean, at this point in time, first of all, I'd like to think that, I mean, you'll have a great set of sessions coming for lots of the questions you have already raised. So at this point, I would like to thank the panel very much. I think it was an outstanding panel. Thank you so much. It was a privilege to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Philip.